Fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery.
Well, welcome back into the House of Mystery. I'm Al Warren. Got, of course, Mr. Michael, the Louvre thief, Hawley here.
That's correct. How'd you know this, Al? I thought I was secret.
Yeah, you thought you were getting away with it, but we caught you.
Yeah.
We were doing some investigating, and we've found all the traces you left behind. You even left your prints behind.
I don't even speak French. That's the only problem.
That's how you got away with it.
There you go. I was an ugly American tourist. That's how I worked it. So
yeah.
It works every time.
Just wear that MAGA hat, and then they all go the other way. See, so there's nobody standing around you. That's a good plan.
Yeah.
That's good.
Is that why people throw things at me? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, that's how it is. You know, don't wear anything clean. Well, anyway, today we're talking with what I guess a science fiction writer, we'd call him. We'll find out. The book, of course, that he's talking about is Barhopping for Astronauts, Cosmic Horror, Late-Stage Capitalism, and Other Light Reading. Leo X. Robertson, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, gentlemen. Excited to chat to you.
So Leo, how did before we get into the book, it sounds really interesting, but how did you yourself get into writing? What drew you to writing a book like this?
I started writing about 15 years ago. I had a really interesting dream, and I wanted to see if I could put it into words, and then I turned that into a book that wasn't very good, and then I wrote several other books that weren't very good, and then eventually they became kind of passable until they became, I don't know, it's always just been the best I can do. Right, but after 15 years, it's starting to get pretty good, I think.
Well, that's all you can do, right? You just go with it, Matt. Well, but there's a difference between dreaming and thinking about it and, I should write this, and then even doing it, and actually getting it out there and getting it published and getting it promoted and stuff like, that's a big step beyond just doing it for yourself. So does it kind of make you feel a little bit vulnerable when you put out your writing to the world, so to speak?
Definitely, and I can't look at what people say about it or think, even if they've got nice things to say, I just can't fathom it, honestly. It makes me very sensitive to it. And we're talking about this book, and I was just looking at the table of contents, and several of these stories were published by different places, and then the book is with a press I really respect. I just can't convince myself. I mean, I really think this book is worth people's time, but it's such a fragile sense to hold on to that,
Right. Well, I have that feeling myself. I just, not about your book, but about mine. I think that's a natural thing.
Yeah.
Because you do the best you can, you put it out, and you finally stop, you get it out, it gets published. And as you progress in life and in writing, you'll look back and kind of go, oh, I would have done this different. You're always going to look back and see things that you would go, oh, if I did it, I'd do this. And that never goes away. So I think that, but you're doing it right. In my opinion, stay away from as many of those reviews and comments as you can, good or bad, just sort of, because it takes you off your game, I think. It takes you off the focus of writing.
I got into it for the love of articulating wherever these ideas were and self-expression, and I try to remain true to that. And I also think that I've been very lucky to talk to a lot of writers I respect, and sometimes you read a great short story and I go, like, that was brilliant, original, and my life is better for having read it, and trying to aim for that. And then knowing that when I talk to these writers, they say the same thing. I'll say, you really nailed it with that one, and they'll go, oh God, cringe, I bet I could do better, It's, like you say, it's never ending, and so it's not a feeling to trust. It's just to become...
No.
Yes.
No, it's a good thing.
See, I'm different. I have no problems because I'm a narcissist, and it works well for me. But apparently, you're not a narcissist. Your stand-up comedy. It seems like to me, if someone that does that, seems like you'd be you wouldn't have that anxiety, because I would seem to have that anxiety trying to do stand-up comedy. That's to me, it's interesting. Is there a connection there, or how's that work?
Good question. I mean, there's the type of narcissism that tries not to draw attention to itself, and by doing that draws more attention to itself. So maybe I'm erring on that side of narcissism where I'm annoyingly performatively humble or something, There's no winning. But first of all, I'm Scottish. I live in Norway. I've lived here for over 10 years. It's such a strange culture that I always feel on the outside of, and there's a level of remove when you do stand up here, because if they don't laugh, I can just convince myself it's because I'm Scottish, because I'm not funny. But also it's like, I think it has helped me kind of consider, okay, I thought that was funny, but this audience doesn't agree. But does that mean I should give it up or not? Should I say it again to a different audience, or what am I getting out of this? And similarly, when you bring that back to writing, you go, okay, it seems most audiences didn't, most people like these stories, but not these stories. But okay, but I really like these stories. So it's an interesting kind of expansion of market research, right? Trying to understand what you're getting out of it and what an audience is getting out of it, and trying to find the sweet spot between those two things, but also, getting yours out of it first as well. Does that make any sense?
Oh, it does. I think what it is ask the artist, so to speak, in whatever you're doing. You have to kind of sit there and kind of go, well, how much is the audience sitting over your shoulder as you're writing or as you're performing? And when you're putting together the show, let's say for your live comedy, are you thinking about that audience or not? Or do you know what I'm saying? And I think the more you think about how the audience is going to feel about something, sometimes it directs you away from what you would normally do. And I'm not sure if that's good or bad. I'm an old man now, and I've got 38 books, and I'll tell you, over the years, I've found, because some books I've went with and just done it, and they were complete bombs. But then, years later, all of a sudden they become a hit. Totally out of the blue, for no reason at all. So I'm glad I did it the original way rather than changing it for what I thought the readers would have wanted, at the time. So I think it's something that's something I think about constantly every day as I'm writing and radio and doing things. I'm always thinking, well, should I or shouldn't I? And then a lot of times it's gone to the point now where I just go ahead and I think about it afterwards so that I don't affect my writing. And sometimes it's good, and sometimes, boy, it's rough.
His last couple, don't say that. Last couple of books were awesome.
Oh yeah, lovely.
Yes.
Well, that happens. That happens. But you know what? Sometimes you'll write it and it'll be like, wow, it's just working.
Nice.
Do you have that feeling? Did you get that feeling with Barhopping? For instance, when you were writing it and when you got it finished, before you handed it in, let's say, but the story was done, did you feel like, wow, this is great?
Like I say, but half of the stories are published already, so I thought, and by various different outlets, so I thought this is, well presented enough to a publisher that they can see that I've done kind of diligence and so on. But there's always doubt, isn't there? In every aspect, it seemed good to me, but two things are very interesting. You talked about the vulnerability of writing. I think that's nice because I think that I'm not chasing markets for sure. I think that, like I say, I make films, I talk to comedians and so on, and there is a kind of often talks about trying to find what an audience wants and doing that, but I think if you're just making a kind of reconstitution of existing material to please an audience, and you're not making yourself vulnerable by expressing your own real loves and fears and sincere beliefs masked through fiction in various ways, then you haven't done anything proper. So I think that if you've taken that risk, whether or not it pays off, then you've used your time effectively, right? So when I do comedy and it doesn't work, at least half the time it doesn't work at all. I feel like, well, then I don't understand this. I don't understand what an audience wants. I just cannot predict it. And every time I think I do, it doesn't work. And maybe it was that evening. Maybe it was a joke that doesn't work. It's just constant trial and error. And I think it makes it easier to be kinder to myself after the years of not predicting this, because it's an unpredictable thing, like you say. So yeah, I think just really, really going for what you have in mind, like you say, means that it never feels like a waste of time, whether or not an audience receives it well or not. Yeah.
And a lot of it too, even when you get a review or something, or somebody said something, a lot of times it's reflective of how their day is and what's going on in their life.
Oh yeah.
more so than what it is with your project. You know what I mean? A lot of times it's kind of, they're having a bad day or they're having a bad week, and they get your book and it just didn't work with them at that time, and then they lash out for stress relief, I guess, or something. You know, we all feel that, right? So it happens, and so you can't get too much. I mean, so this book, Barhopping for Astronauts, tell us what the premise, like, what's the stories about? Like, what are people going to get out of this?
It's sci-fi short fiction. If you like shows like Love, Death and Robots, or Black Mirror, or if you like just other contemporary sci-fi short story writers like Ken Liu, I love, Alistair Reynolds, you're going to get, I think, a series of very interesting, funny, curious, sometimes tragic, intense visions of different futures that I've collected over, I mean, it could be over 10 years, I don't know. The very best of my thinking in the vein of sci-fi.
Do you prefer short stories?
I just pursue the ideas as long as they last, and for sci-fi, I found it the toughest genre to write in, and so the ideas often petered out faster. I find them getting longer the longer I write, because I'm more comfortable creating complex worlds that can last longer numbers of pages. But my taste goes back and forth, right? Don't you feel that way?
You know, Mike, who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it goes by what's going on in how far, and also the characters, like the characters in the book, because when you do short stories, I find that you have to get the idea and the feeling and what's going on and who the character or characters are really quickly in a short story. And people, like, the reader has to understand it. Like when I'm reading away, I have to know who and what and get a feel for these characters almost immediately. And in a full book, you can flesh them out. You can tell their story. You can have them connect with people, and you can bring in all sorts of things. You've got a lot of time. So I think that's the difference. So sometimes one or the other, but I think short stories, there's a real, I don't know, it's a real, I don't want to say trick, but there's a real way of doing that, using your words wisely. How's that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I love like you say, the intensity of it. I think particularly with the types of technologies and new worlds you can create for the length of a story, I love the idea of stretching your imagination to its absolute limit over 8 pages and then just absolutely doing away with everything you just came up with and doing something else the next day. It's the most intense way to create in some respects. What
was your favorite story? Or did you have a couple in here? Or maybe they're all good, but which story do you like the most, or do you like to talk about?
Well, we can talk about the title story. Barhopping for Astronauts is about an elderly astronaut who helped to colonize the moon. The moon is colonized in the future, and ever since he came back from the moon, he hasn't taken his suit off because it used to get him lots of praise and so on, but it's been many decades, we suppose. The suit allows him to live inside it because it was designed such a way that he never needs to take it off, but he doesn't receive the same praise or attention as he used to because everyone can go back and forth to the moon as much as they want and nobody cares who was ever the first person to have colonized it. He ends up getting assaulted and the suit gets torn and he has to take it off and learn to live without it and learn to live without those credentials, even as his future is so uncertain, and rebuild himself after this great achievement that he has to leave in the past. And it seemed like something I think we all go through. And it was a very hopeful story to me because I think we can reinvent ourselves at any age. And I think we have to as well. I think you achieve something great, get a bit of praise for it at the time, and then you have to move on. There was a lot going on in that story for me, and I think it gives people hope. And it's also very compassionate towards the notion that you would want to cling to glory days as well, you know.
The resistance, though, to going on, Pat, is you want to hold on like crazy. I get that.
Well, Madonna keeps reinventing herself, so come on. She can do it. We can all do it, right? Come on. Well, that's interesting. How do you work? Like, that's a cool story, but obviously the story is going deeper than just, you know, he's an astronaut in the future and the moon is already manned and there's all that stuff going on in travel and stuff. So how do you find you work to get into the character? Like, what is it that you do to write from that character's point of view?
Good question. I mean, in that case, it was like a really old draft of it. So at the beginning of the year sometimes, I like to take old drafts of short stories and then rewrite them to make them do what I was trying to make them do at the time. I think this was a story that had defeated me years ago, where I didn't have the ability to write it, but the core of it was still there. This core notion of reinventing yourself and the pain of it. To get into the head, it's lots of rewrites, because I think that my initial impulse when writing is to write what I would say in that situation. And then I need to go back and rewrite and say, no, but this guy isn't going to say what you would say, Leo. He would say this because that's the kind of guy he is. This astronaut, who's like an elderly engineer, talks in a very clipped, muted way. He doesn't talk about his emotions very much. So it's a lot of trimming back in the edit, I think, in the case of that story. Just with a lot of compassion, care, and curiosity, I think. And I think in that story that shines through. Yeah, with a real love and affection for the ways that other people would conduct themselves as I imagine it, you know.
So he's an old astronaut. He's like 60 or something.
I don't specify age, so we can all enjoy it without feeling bad.
So Leo, I'm 63. That's why he said that.
Yeah.
Not 63. I'm 63.
Okay, you're just getting started. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
just reinventing
Yeah.
himself. He started that this year.
Absolutely.
And,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah, sure he can. I don't know if it's working, but hey.
Just don't tell me. Don't tell me if it's not.
No,
Isn't the struggle
say
so
nothing.
useful, all the same?
Yeah, it's about working.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. So when you're doing this, like, I know a lot of these, you had some old ones and you kind of rewrote them and you're doing all this
Yeah.
stuff. But when you sit down to write a story, or when it starts happening, like the feeling comes over and you're writing this, wouldn't this be a good idea? Or you have a dream and you start writing it. Do you think about subtext? Do you think about meaning? Is there something more than just entertainment? Is this like when you're writing it on the page, are you thinking, yeah, this is cool and that's great and I like this? Or is there a little deeper meaning underneath the story?
Always, I think. Has to be for me. I don't know why, because I've nothing against entertainment. But I mean, even my comedy is bogged down by messages in ways that, you know, I think can be a bit tedious sometimes, you know. But it's just what I do. I need analogies, metaphors, symbolism, grander meaning, mysteries, and so on. But that's what I get out of it as well. I mean, the reason I would write stories is because I don't know what it's about. I mean, this story, you know, it sounds now like I knew what it was about, but once I put so much work into just writing and rewriting the opening scenes, suddenly the later scenes poured out of me, and I was like, oh, there's a noise over there. There's a guy at the door. Who's that? And I was just writing this going, I don't know who this guy is. What's he going to find when he goes over by the door? And then he finds this other character, and they start talking. I'm like, what are they talking about? They talk for a little while, and the astronaut eventually just says one last line, and then I go, oh, I think the story's done there. I don't know why. And then I reread it, and I understood what it was about. I was like, okay, he said that last line of dialogue because on this page he said this, and it mirrors the fact that he's changed his thinking about this, but it was this really beautiful subconscious story I was trying to tell. That's the most beautiful part of it for me. Like, that's why I do it, is to find out what I mean. I always think that, like, great stories are things that you discover, they're not what you know. And so when people kind of confidently go, I'm going to write a story about this and it's going to be great, and then, you know, an audience will love it. I don't know. I think it's a bit like a science experiment where the final product is you going, here are the results of all that writing I did. Here's what I found.
Well, I think in these cases too, I always feel like, in a way, or you kind of live through your characters as you write the story. You kind of feel what it's like to be them and to be presented in their situation. You know, like the older astronaut who was famous, not anymore, and what they go through, and you kind of feel it as you write it, right? And you kind of go through that. Do you find that it changes you when you finish a story? Like, you found, like, you come out of it at the beginning of the story to the end of the story. Does it make you different?
Definitely. I think that, yes, absolutely it does. Of course, as you both know, it's not maybe it is a permanent change, but it's a permanent seeking. You just go write a new one and try and change again, right? It's a perpetual process, but definitely, it's really not, I think that if I trust that a message comes out of me subconsciously through a story, then it must be what I deep down really believe. And that's not something that's easily accessible to me all the time. If you go like, listen, if I created this scenario in which these characters act this way and it makes logical sense, and all of these scenarios add up to this final meaning, it's a bit like a kind of evidence to yourself that like this is something that is a grander truth in a way, you know. So yeah, I have a big. This is how I think in a way. This is how I really express what I believe. But it's also how I find out what I believe as well.
Yeah, you learned as well. Did you hear your characters then, or these characters like alive to you, and you hear them, see them, feel them, and you kind of picture them, or is it completely different for you?
That's only really happened to me this year with a few characters. I mean, everyone has kind of different levels of how intensely they can imagine things, and I actually don't think I'm that naturally visual an imaginer, unfortunately. So it's almost like they just kind of...
I always have voices in my head there. You know.
You do?
I always have voices in my head. Yeah, they tell me to do a lot of stuff, but, you know.
Good stuff?
Also, you don't?
I don't know. It's like they're all kind of serving the story. So it's more like everything has to be in balance for what the story needs them to do. But it's so funny. I mean, especially in a short story, I think you can really examine every aspect of it, like plot, setting, characterization, five senses. When you really add up everything that needs to go on in a story, it's in such an unknowable balance that if you tried to do it consciously, control it every page, like it's just impossible. It is just you just have to have, there's some sort of faith in the magic of storytelling, right? Every time. So yeah, I think it started happening to me this year with my writing that I really picture characters and I like the idea of hanging out with them and so on. And that's a real delight because it wasn't like that for me before. But what's it like for you both with your writing?
Well, I was going to ask, did you start drinking?
That's what
I stopped drinking.
Well, I think when you're writing fiction and that the characters come alive, and that's how you relate to them. You create them in your subconscious, and you sort of work with it. And some people hear them really loudly, and some people shouldn't be allowed out in public because they're so in touch with these characters and they're driving and talking away. But hey, no, we do mainly nonfiction, true crime history.
Right. Okay.
So you meet the real person. You know, it's a lot harder in the sense that, well, it's not harder, but it's just you meet the characters, you talk to the characters, you learn about them, and they're real people. So you can't really feel them the same way as when you're doing fiction and you create the character.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I want to check that out. That's cool.
Yeah. Same as when they do things. The bad thing is, like, you can make, with your stories, you're allowed to make it happen the way it is. So when you got bad people or bad characters, or you can make good things happen, and that doesn't happen in real life. You know, a lot of times we're writing and it's kind of like, this is not really as happy an ending as you'd want it to be, but at least you can kind of at least go that way, I guess.
Yeah, I think within this collection, there's hopefully a great balance of fun and optimism as much as there is bleakness, because I think that it's just, I do have a kind of voice which is actually quite cruel a lot of the time. Yeah.
You should be writing true crime.
Yeah, for sure. I love true crime. I just reread In Cold Blood for the second time. I've been watching the films. It's great. But yeah, it's a very cruel voice. But through that voice, I think, comes a lot of optimism and love of life and belief that things can change. I mean, even if you present a dystopia, you're saying, well, God, at least things are not like this, or, you know, imagine if this went out of control. So I'm always optimistic. I feel almost a responsibility to be that way. I don't know why.
One of your reviews there, it says brutal, bloody, and haunting. So are these dark? Like, I mean, what I'm asking is because of the way the world is today at this time, people are a little bit more sensitive. So are you careful on how violent or how much action or darkness you put in, or do you just do what you do and people can take it as it is? Definitely
the latter. I think it's getting worse. I think my book's getting more violent, more gratuitous in the sex, violence, and language. And I think it's there's something about being very visceral that drives the message home, and I don't want to give that up. And I don't want to talk down to an audience. I don't want to pander to them. But I totally understand that if you've been through something traumatic and you don't want to read about it handled with a certain way, that it's not going to be for you. So I have nothing against the notion of content warnings, trigger warnings, and so on. The last thing I want would be for my work to make anyone feel bad, but I think it is going to be, I think it's challenging, but I think it's like a challenge for the type of people who want to take that on. And I don't think those people should lose that challenge for the sake of comforting somebody else. I think that it should just be for the people who want to enjoy that kind of thing. You know, some of my favourite books are just absolutely horrible. Just horrible.
Right.
Because it's something, I just really respect the bravery of it, and I respect not being talked down to, and I respect being shown just the absolute horror of things sometimes. And I think that there's a deep relief in the truth of that sometimes, and I look for that often.
Well, I think it's taking that real bad situation and turning that into something positive somehow. And I think that's kind of how I look at it. So, because I hear a lot about that, right? And I think it's taking something that's negative and turning it around somehow.
Yeah, I think go as deeply and as darkly as you can in order to turn it around. Like how big can your redemption arc be? You know, how much can the human spirit overcome? I think everything, in almost all circumstances. Although I also think there's great argument for stories that say this guy didn't overcome it in this circumstance. You know, there's room for all truths, and I need to hear all of them. And sometimes I feel like writing about some of them. You know.
Hey, now your comic.
Yeah.
When you do comic with horror, are you careful on how you do the comedy in these stories, or is there kind of a, because do you have to be a certain amount of sensitivity, or do you the comic? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't want to make a joke out of someone in a bad situation, or maybe you do. I don't know. Do you think about how the comedy fits in?
I mean, I find kind of comfort in relating to an audience through self-deprecation or punching up. Always, gallows humor is very healing, and I think that pretty much everyone always understands my intent. And I apparently I don't have a very threatening vibe. I understand that. I didn't really think about it, but everyone knows that even when I'm being really horrible, I have good intentions at heart. And you can see this, like, you can go, God, that was horrible, and I see your good intentions, and I don't like it, and that happens. But that's not the same as saying, like, you know, you're doing something actively malicious, which I never am, and never would.
So, where do you have a website? Do you have social media? Where do you like readers and fans to follow you?
Yeah, sure. You can find me leoxrobertson.wordpress.com. Yes, that's where I do all the latest updates on things. You can find me on Instagram, leoxrobertson. Find me on Facebook, same thing. I think I'm on Twitter, I'm on Threads, I'm on Blue Sky, I'm on TikTok, I'm on all of this stuff.
It's a lot of work. So you're dancing on TikTok for people.
Yes.
That's great.
Oh my God. Because, you know, Faulkner would have done it, wouldn't he? If he was still alive.
Yeah. I wonder what people would do. That's crazy. That's crazy time. So. Well, I appreciate you being here. And now everyone. So the book, Barhopping for Astronauts. And the writer has been our guest. That's Leo X. Robertson. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, gents.
Great speaking with you, Leo.
This has been a production of the House of Mystery Radio Show. To find out more about our show, guests, or hosts, go to our website at houseofmysteryradio.com.